Let me ask you something that sounds simple but isn't. Where is yesterday right now? Not when it was, not how long ago it was, but where is it? If yesterday no longer exists, then what exactly are memories remembering? And if yesterday does still exist somewhere, then why can't we go there? These questions sound philosophical, even playful, until you realize that modern physics has already taken a position on them, and that position is quietly terrifying. According to our best theories, the past is not gone, the future is not unwritten, and the present is not special. The universe does not privilege now, and once you accept that, time travel stops sounding like a fantasy and starts sounding like a problem. The first person to make this idea feel intuitive rather than abstract was H.G. Wells. In The Time Machine, Wells proposed that time is simply a fourth dimension, no more mysterious in principle than length, width, or height. A human being, in this view, is not a point that moves through time, but an extended object stretched from birth to death. What we call the present is merely the thin cross-section of ourselves that consciousness happens to occupy. At the time, this sounded like metaphysical window dressing, an excuse to send a character into the future. Wells himself reportedly did not take the idea very seriously, but physics did. In the early 20th century, Albert Einstein shattered the old idea that time flows the same for everyone. His theory of relativity showed that time depends on motion and gravity. Two clocks following different paths through space will not agree on how much time has passed. Then Minkowski took Einstein's equations and revealed what they were really saying. Space and time are not separate ingredients of reality. They are fused into a single four-dimensional structure called spacetime. Events do not happen one after another in an absolute sense. They exist as points in the four-dimensional geometry. A person's life is a curve through space-time called a world line, and every moment in that life exists equally within the structure. This view is often called the block universe. From this perspective, the universe is not something that is constantly being created moment by moment. It already exists all at once. Past, present, and future are all equally real. The reason you experience time as flowing is not because time itself flows, but because your consciousness moves along your world line. You are like a reader moving line by line through a book that has already been written. And once you imagine reality this way, an uncomfortable thought emerges. If the future already exists, then in some sense it is already there to be visited. Physics, disturbingly, agrees. If you move closer to the speed of light, time slows down for you relative to people who stay behind. Astronauts on the International Space Station age very slightly more slowly than people on Earth. GPS satellites must correct for relativistic time dilation, or your phone's location would drift by kilometers. If you could travel fast enough, you could leave Earth for a short journey and return to find that centuries have passed. No paradox arises here. You did not skip time, you simply experienced less of it. The universe is perfectly happy to let you move into the future. The trouble begins when we ask about the past. In 1949, logician Gödel discovered that Einstein's equations allow strange solutions to which spacetime itself rotates and curves in such a way that certain paths loop back on themselves. These paths are called closed time-like curves. If you followed one, you would eventually arrive at an earlier point in your own past. Physics, at least mathematically, did not forbid this. There is no term in the equation that said this is illegal, which meant that if time travel into the past was impossible, it was not because physics alone, something deeper had stopped it. That something is logic. The moment you step into the past, causality becomes fragile. Most people immediately think of the grandfather paradox. What happens if you go back and kill your grandfather before your parent is conceived? But this paradox is almost too dramatic. People are complicated. Biology, probability, and coincidence can always be invoked to dodge the contradiction. The truly lethal paradoxes involve objects and information because they are precise. Imagine this. At exactly 3 o'clock, you place a small metal cube on a time machine and send it 5 minutes into the past. At 5 minutes to 3, the cube suddenly appears on the table. Now ask a simple question. Where did the cube come from? Not who owned it, but what caused it to exist. It was not built in the past because it appeared from nowhere. It was not built in the future because the only reason it existed there was that it appeared in the past and survived until 3 o'clock to be sent back. The cube exists in a causal loop. It has no origin. It was never manufactured, never created. It simply is. This is not just weird. It violates the most basic principle of explanation, that every physical object has a cause. A universe that allows such an object is a universe in which reasoning itself begins to fail. Information creates even deeper trouble. Suppose you sent yourself a message from tomorrow telling you the winning lottery numbers. You use the information and win. Now ask, where did the information originate? It did not originate in the future because the future only knew the numbers because you sent them back. It did not originate in the past because you learned them from the future. The information has no source. It exists without cause. This is sometimes called a bootstrap paradox, and it is not a technicality. Physics is built on the assumption that information, like energy, cannot appear from nowhere. This is why hypothetical faster than light particles known as tachyons are so dangerous conceptually. According to relativity, anything that travels faster than light will move backward in time in some reference frames. That means messages could arrive before they are sent, conversation could cancel themselves, agreements could become contradictions, entire chains of reasoning would collapse. Physics responds by doing the only thing it can. It refuses to allow controllable, faster than light communication. Science fiction writers discovered this long before physics formalized it, and they found the only clean escape route. If you travel into the past, you do not change your own history, you leave it. The universe splits. You enter a new timeline while the original continues untouched. This idea appears in the work of Jorge Luis Borges, in the famous Butterfly Effect story by Ray Bradbury, and in hundreds of time travel narratives. In physics, it echoes the many-world interpretation of quantum mechanics proposed by Hugh Everett, in which every quantum measurement causes the universe to branch into multiple outcomes. In a branching universe, paradoxes disappear. You can kill your past self because the self belongs to a different branch. You can change history because it is no longer your history. You can duplicate yourself endlessly because each copy has its own independent world line. Logic survives. Causality is preserved within each branch. The price is ontological extravagance. Reality becomes unimaginably large. There is countless versions of you, each making slightly different choices, each equally real. Free will survives, but uniqueness does not. The block universe offers a different bargain. In that picture, the past cannot be changed because it was always that way. If you travel into the past, whatever you do, that is already part of history. You cannot kill your grandfather because you did not kill him. Any attempt you make will fail by necessity. This preserves a single universe and avoids branching, but it comes at a cost that many find unbearable. Free will becomes questionable. If the future already exists, then choice begins to look like an illusion produced by ignorance of what is already fixed. The third option is the simplest. Backward time travel is impossible. The universe allows clocks to slow, paths to bend, and space-time to curve, but it enforces causality absolutely. Any configuration of matter that would create a closed time-like curve is prevented by as yet unknown physical principles. Some physicists suspect such a chronology protection mechanism exists. A universe that allows logical impossibilities cannot remain a universe for long. What all of this reveals is that time travel is not really about machines. It is about explanations. The universe seems remarkably tolerant of strange things. Particles that exist in superposition, space that expands faster than light, time that flows at different rates, but it is completely intolerant of effects without causes. The moment causality breaks, predictions fail, reasoning fails, science fails, and a universe without explanation is not a universe we can inhabit. So let's return to the letter on your table, written in your handwriting and dated next week. The most important question is not how it arrived there. It is which universe you are in now. Because the moment information moves backward in time, reality must either fracture into branches or erase the condition that allowed the contradiction to arise. Time is not guarded by clocks or equations alone, it is guarded by logic, and logic, unlike time, does not bend.